The red and blue lights flickered across the cedar walls of my lake cabin, casting eerie shadows that writhed in the pre-dawn gloom. I stood on the porch, gripping a steaming coffee mug, as two police officers strode toward me, their boots crunching on the gravel. Behind them, a woman in her late 50s, clad in a crisp taupe pantsuit, stood with her arms crossed, her smug expression practically glowing. Her platinum-streaked bob swayed as she pointed at my cabin, her voice sharp enough to slice through the morning mist. "That's him, officers, the intruder. I told you he broke in last night," she declared. "This property's been empty for months, and now this stranger claims he owns it. I'm Margaret Hensley, president of Willow Creek Estates HOA, and I know every homeowner here." The lead officer, a broad-shouldered man with salt and pepper hair, approached with measured caution. "Sir, we got a call about a burglary at this address. Can you provide some ID?" I fished my driver's license from my wallet, along with a second card I kept hidden behind it. Handing them over, I watched the officer's partner sweep a flashlight across the porch, searching for signs of forced entry that didn't exist. The lead officer studied my license under his beam, then froze when he saw the card. His eyes flicked up to me, back to the card, then over his shoulder at Margaret, who was tapping her foot with impatient triumph. "Ma'am," he said, his voice slow and deliberate, "do you know who this is?" Margaret's smirk wavered. "I don't care who he thinks he is. He's trespassing on HOA property without permission." The officer's tone shifted, firm and pointed. "Ma'am, this is Nathan Caldwell. He's the chief regulatory officer for the State Property Board." The blood drained from Margaret's face, her confidence evaporating like dew under the morning sun. It had all started so innocently 3 days earlier. My mother called with the heavy news that Uncle Thomas had passed away, leaving me his cabin in Willow Creek Estates. I hadn't been there since I was a kid, nearly 2 decades ago. The estate lawyer mailed me the keys and deed, confirming the property taxes were paid and the transfer was legal. Burned out from endless property disputes at my desk in the city, I saw the cabin as a refugee, a chance to mourn my uncle and escape the grind of regulatory work. The 3-hour drive through twisting mountain roads soothed my nerves, and I arrived as the sun dipped behind the pines. The cabin was just as I remembered, modest, with knotty pine walls and a stone fireplace that carried the faint scent of old embers. I unpacked basic supplies, lit a fire, and settled in with a book and a glass of bourbon. By 10 p.m., I was asleep in the master bedroom, lulled by crickets and the gentle lapping of the lake. Then came the pounding, not a polite knock, but a furious hammering that yanked me from sleep at 7 a.m. I stumbled to the door in rumpled clothes to find a woman on my porch, clutching a clipboard, her face twisted with indignation. "Who are you, and what are you doing in this property?" she demanded before I could speak. Rubbing sleep from my eyes, I replied, "I'm Nathan Caldwell. This is my cabin. I inherited it from my uncle." "And you are?" She bristled. "I'm Margaret Hensley, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association. No one has authorized new residents here. This cabin's been vacant since Thomas Caldwell died. Occupancy requires HOA approval, a $600 transfer fee, and a background check." I sighed, exhaustion creeping in. "I own this property. I have the deed and keys. My uncle left it to me." She brandished her clipboard like a sword. "That's not how it works here. Willow Creek has strict covenants. You can't just move in without paperwork. Where's your HOA application? Have you attended the orientation?" I leaned against the doorframe, craving coffee. "Margaret, I'm not a resident. I'm the owner, staying one night in my own cabin. I don't need HOA permission to sleep in my bed." Her face flushed crimson. "How dare you speak to me like that? I've run this HOA for 15 years, and I won't be disrespected by some city slicker ignoring our rules." I kept my voice steady. "I'm exercising my property rights. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need caffeine." As I moved to close the door, she jammed her foot in the gap. "This isn't over. You'll hear from our attorney, and if you're here tonight, I'm calling the police for trespassing." She stormed off, her heels grinding into the gravel. I made a mental note to dig into Willow Creek's HOA bylaws. In my line of work, I dealt with plenty of power-hungry board members, but Margaret Hensley was a category unto herself. The day passed quietly. I sorted through Uncle Thomas's belongings, paddled a kayak across the glassy lake, and met neighbors who offered condolences and warm welcomes. None mentioned HOA approvals, though several smirked when I brought up Margaret. "Oh, you met her," said Jim, from a nearby cabin. "She once tried to fine me for planting unapproved shrubs. I had to show her the rulebook to shut her up." That evening, I grilled steaks on the deck, watching the lake glow pink and gold. I was settling in for another peaceful night when headlights pierced the darkness through sets, moving fast. Police cars pulled up, and I stepped outside, still holding my dinner coffee mug, to face the officers and Margaret's triumphant glare. The lead officer returned my ID, turning to Margaret. "Ma'am, what crime are you reporting?" She faltered, then rallied. "He's trespassing. This property requires HOA authorization, and he doesn't have it." The officer's voice was flat. "He owns the property. You can't trespass on your own land." Margaret's pitch rose. "The HOA has rules. He hasn't paid fees or filed applications." The second officer cut in. "You called 911 for a burglary in progress. That's a serious claim." I spoke up. "Officers, I can show the deed and estate papers if it helps. Everything's filed with the county, taxes paid." The lead officer waved it off. "No need, Mr. Caldwell. My sergeant took your property law workshop last year." He faced Margaret. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a crime. Did you know that?" Margaret's mouth worked soundlessly, her composure crumbling. I seized the moment. "Officers, I'd like to file a complaint. I was woken in my own home by police responding to a false burglary report. This is the second time today, Ms. Hensley has harassed me for being on my property." The officer nodded, pulling out a notebook. "We'll take statements. Mr. Caldwell, do you want to press charges for the false report?" Margaret's face blanched. "You can't be serious. I'm the HOA president, protecting our community." I raised an eyebrow. "From its lawful owners?" The next hour was chaos. Margaret called her husband, the HOA lawyer, and half the board, her voice growing shriller with each call. The officers left after warning her to study property law before dialing 911 again. The next morning, I filed the complaint before driving back to the city. At my office, I pulled Willow Creek's file. It was a goldmine: complaints of overreach, shady fines, and unnotified meetings. Margaret's reign was a case study in abuse. I scheduled a state audit for the next month. The findings were damning: rigged elections, missing financials, and a pattern of intimidating homeowners. An emergency HOA meeting followed, where residents, fed up after years of Margaret's tyranny, voted unanimously to oust her. She screamed about legality as security escorted her out, still clutching her clipboard, a fallen queen in a parking lot. Margaret's false report earned her a $6,000 fine and 250 hours of community service. The HOA's insurer refused to cover her legal fees, forcing her to remortgage her home. But the real victory came 6 months later when I drafted the Caldwell Standards, new state rules curbing HOA overreach. Margaret's harassment had sparked reforms protecting homeowners statewide. Now, when I visit the cabin, I see her walking her yappy dog, eyes averted, her former swagger gone. The new president, Jim, runs a fair board focused on community, not control. As the state official overseeing Willow Creek's compliance, I ensure every rule is followed. Margaret pales at the mention of my name, and I sleep soundly, knowing the woman who called 911 on me for sleeping in my bed now dreads my next review. Her fine stung, but her fear of my oversight? That's justice.